But it hasn't got
It's
something
got
to
your
do with
name on
town
there.
report.
All right, Jim had opened the meeting, and I will say, the town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns related to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion, and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Back to you.
Okay. You need to approve the minutes from December 28th, 2020. Anybody got any omissions or corrections?
I got some comments from Kyle.
Very minor, just editorial stuff. The content was good.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion that we approve meetings from, what was it? I forget the date. Our meeting, December 28th, 2020.
Second.
Yes, Kyle, you want to do roll call?
Yes, sir. Cal Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickett, aye.
Andrew Smarco.
Aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
And Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Administrative discussion. 119 Tehadawon.
Just to back up for 1 second, on the agenda was release the executive sessions minutes from December 14th, and town council said they probably shouldn't be released just yet, so that'll go on hold for whenever the appeal is basically done.
James, can I add one to administrative discussions?
Sure.
Just to reiterate that the plans that coming in need to be color coded. It's getting hard to kind of define some of these lines on computers. So if we can ask them to kind of at least follow the color codes, that would be great.
That would be, I sure hope that would be emphasized when you get the plans in, Amy. Is any way of putting a letter out or something with the plan?
It's on the filing. It's on the filing procedures. I'll just remind them when it comes in that whatever they're showing has got to be clear. And a lot of these, especially the smaller ones, the coloring is done by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So then they'd have to find some way of rescanning it. But for the big projects, clearly they should be able to do that.
Yep.
Okay. 119 Tehadawon, approval to file demolition and Phragmites control notice of intent. I assume that's the Brown property?
Yes, yeah. So I'm assuming you would want to give me pre-approval to do these filings, or if I just go ahead and do them. But I'm almost ready to file for a request for determination of applicability for the demolition. The house itself is not in the 100-foot buffer zone, but maybe some of the staging and a couple trees are like, actually one tree is about 30 or 40 feet away. So I figure I should file an RDA on that one. And then the Phragmites control will certainly need a notice of intent, which is a little further out in the schedule. But also before I can file the notice of intent, I need to put a public notice in the environmental monitor, in the state's environmental monitor, because it's over 5,000 square feet of work.
Do you need a vote from the board, or can we just have a consensus, or?
I think a consensus is fine. And I assume no one really wants to see the draft because I'm about to file with you. So that's all kind of weird. It's going to be approved by the select board before I can submit it. And either town administrator or assistant town administrator will be at least kind of looking at it before it gets filed.
So would you folks kind of speak up and just say whether you approve the idea or not?
Sounds good. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Yep.
And I'm trying to line up the contractors, but it's become a little bit of an issue, which is why I haven't filed for the actual demo permit yet, so I can get the historical commission going, because that's the one I really want to get moving. So I think, Andrew, unless you feel differently, what I might do is at least send them a copy of the RDA for the demolition. So just remind them that this thing will formally be coming to them at some point.
Sure. And I can bring it up at the meeting on the 14th. So it'll be on the radar.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So there's, nothing's changed, not much to do, except for the fact that they might burn it. Instead of a straight demo, the fire department might do the training burn.
Okay.
Is that all right with the rest of you board members?
Sounds good to me.
They use PFAS-free firefighting foam.
I have no idea.
Okay, just a question.
I would hope. I'll ask them.
Brian?
I'll ask them.
Okay with
Yep.
it?
Yep. Sounds good.
Kyle?
Yes.
Kyle?
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds like it's, Sarah, you speak?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, I guess it's unanimous, but go ahead and follow through on it, Amy.
Okay, don't hold your breath.
Department goals.
That's easy, yeah. The department goals, I was going, once I kind of sort of finish a project, I'm always kind of looking for the next project. And actually, it occurred to me that what I really need to face is like some serious filing issues. The only other thing I was thinking of is might be able to tackle some of the, at least the information piece of invasive species and getting that on the web page. The tree signage, basically, I think LCT and Matt with the Shade Tree Committee are kind of basically taking that over. So that won't be a heavy lift. And there's two more locations or two more kiosks that you had approved the money for that haven't been built or installed yet. And I was thinking Hartwell and maybe Mary Shepherd at Powers Road to get kiosks. They don't have them. Browns Woods will need one, but Cheryl Calley thought that she might either actually donate herself or get the Rotary Club to get a Eagle Scout to do it. So Mill Hill doesn't have one. I don't know if Mill Hill needs one. And some of the other ones, most of the other ones have them. Oh, the new parking lot on Boxborough Road doesn't have one, but could maybe use a half-size kiosk. So I was gonna, unless someone has a better idea, I was gonna try to line up Hartwell and Mary Shepherd for sometime this summer.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then the rest of the swing signs, which I can't remember which ones they are, but there's another 4 or 5 to go in.
Is there any signage down to Reed, or hasn't that easement hasn't been completed yet?
Yeah, I want to talk to what's his face over there about opening that up for parking. But I think it needs signs at each parking space to say it's for conservation land or something. And there is a swing sign ready to put up there that says Oak Hill. I just been holding off because I was waiting for the conservation restriction to get finalized.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Kiosk, wetland delineation. I see that you sent out a map of it.
Yeah, so they had gone through, I had a bunch of comments, which I think you probably see in that letter there, and which I'm pretty sure I didn't load up here. And then they responded to that. I'd say maybe most of them, they're going to make changes, but there's a few, and especially it's the few that are probably going to take the longest walk to get to, that would need checking. Now, again, it's only wetlands that are closer than 10 feet to the work. So it is wetlands that are really snug up against it. So unless you want to take them at their word that the delineations are fine, I was going to try to line up something with them to walk it.
What's the opinion of the board? Because somebody's gonna have to go out there. I mean, it's, what do you take they've been doing it long enough, really, but anyway, I just kind of want to know what the opinion of the board is.
Yeah, and really the main issue sort of is that with COVID, you can't do a high rail. You can't get in a car and drive down, get in one of their trucks and drive down. You got to walk because no one's allowed in their trucks.
Do you know when they want to do it or would like to do it?
I've been trying to get them to do it forever. And, if it snows, it's all over. So.
Are there more, I mean, I know there's a lot of sensitive areas, but are there more specific like target areas that you want to walk?
Well, that's what those, it's the ones kind of near the Cardillo property, that part of the railroad, that back area. That I was questioning what, why did you put the yellow low spray on one side but not the other side of a culvert, things like that? And they said, well, because it's more than 10 feet away. So it'd just be verifying that sort of stuff. They changed all the rest of the stuff that I had in there.
Okay.
All closer to a crossing, of course.
And you're the only one that's qualified to go on the track?
I think Kyle has a thing, but it's
attorney.
it's like it's not worth splitting up because they're all in the same place.
Right.
Amy, I'm wondering if that project that Corey's working on with the Corps has a reasonable resolution delineation that could be cross-referenced.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not where it's really going through the marsh. It's some areas in there because
Okay.
it's clearly it's right at the toe slope.
Okay.
So they took forever to get this revised map back to me. So I'll just throw it back to them and said, when do you need this done by? And can it wait till March or April? Because they're going to go ahead and they have to set something up, with the flagmen and all that stuff. And then we're probably gonna get a foot of snow right after they do that. So
I think that's reasonable. And then also the wetlands that are out there at the Toa Slope, some of them can get pretty deep pretty quick, at least from what I can see, from the road of the general area. So I feel like there's a health and safety aspect to this field visit as well, as you have your uplands or, railroad bed. So that's a factor too. It just,
we'd be walking down the middle of the railroad.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just having like a steepish slope and then stepping in wetlands in January. I mean, it's one thing if you get wet.
I am not walking down the slope.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very obvious. It's not like I have to go 20 feet off the railroad bed. It's gonna be either there or not there.
Okay.
It's only 10 feet off that matters. So.
Yeah.
Well,
So they'll shut the trains down. You won't have to like bail off the tracks. That's my question.
No, they will arrange it all, and there'll be the flag man and the radio man, and there'll probably be at least 2 or 3 of us out there.
It's pretty impressive how well they know the schedules and trains coming through.
right. We did it with a big group a long time ago, and it was an orchestrated event for sure. So yeah, I mean, I think to see what they have to say. Ask them what
Yeah,
the
but
calendar is.
was that before they put the second rail back in, Sarah? I
It's
think
when we
so.
all had to meet in air. It was when we were meeting with air as well. So I don't know if the second was in or not. Don't remember.
I know I was involved at the covered off my property was the beaver deceiver stuff there. And the second rail wasn't in there. And I thought all kind of, Ian did a lot of it there at one point.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think that's good.
Okay. Other updates and administrative action? We got anything else?
A couple minor things, but we can go ahead with the projects first, and if we have a gap, I can just,
Okay. Continued public hearing, notice of intent, Spectacle Pond well, raw water transfer main, DEP file number, which I only have the 204 part. Water main from Spec Pond well to Whitcomb Ave water treatment plant, 3.5 miles in existing roadway. Somebody gonna speak to this?
My name's Rick Canavan. I'm a wetland scientist with Time Bond, representing the water department. I was just looking, a file number has been issued. So that was kind of, I believe, what was the bigger holdup last time. So that was 0928. So we presented this project to you at your last meeting. In response to your comments, we resubmitted the erosion control detail sheet for the project and added a dewatering treatment detail. That's like the filter bag with the down gradient. I believe it's a wattle or straw bales. And, I believe that was pretty much the one comment we had that you were looking for us to respond to in your discussion of possible conditions. You'd also talked about marking areas where the adjacent road shoulder had invasives, particularly knotweed, which we were agreeing was a reasonable condition. So that's pretty much it for now. If you want to have, if you've got additional questions, open to hearing them.
Anybody got any more questions about it all? Please speak up. Are you going to be working with the highway department to redo the road? Is there going to be a?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a, like you said, like the vast majority of the job is in pavement. So it's saw cut, excavate, put in the new pipe, and they need to backfill and put temporary pavement down on a daily basis. You don't want this trench open. The final details of how the road is refinished, like part of it is state road, so that's going to also involve MassDOT, but I don't know the details of how what the final pave is on the rest of the road. I'm not aware that I guess I'm not sure, so I don't want to tell you what it's going to be because I'm not sure how they're going to fix the road beyond there's going to be pavement in the area that's saw cut and excavated.
That road's in terrible shape, Spectacle Pond Road, anyway.
Yeah.
I thought there was some discussion about them redoing it at one point, but I hadn't heard any more about it. And I was just wondering if it was all lined up.
That could very well have been them. That discussion may have happened. I unfortunately, with my wetland side of the project, I haven't been involved in that discussion, so I'm not sure what the answer would be.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments? Is there anybody from the general public that's got any questions? I assume you'd like to close this out.
Yeah, if there's no other discussion, when I last meeting, I was talking about how the vast majority of the work is even exempt, and really it's just work and floodplain in the road that's the real trigger. So it's a big project for the water department, and it's a long project, but it's certainly hopefully very benign as far as like the work is in roadway. It's going to be roadway when the project's done. So hopefully very minimal impact for anything to do with.
The only thing I can see is with the transfer station is going to be a real nightmare with the traffic for that during the week.
Right.
So does anybody want to make a motion to move forward on this, to close this out?
I'll make a motion that the commission close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for the Spectacle Pond Well Water Transmission Main Project, DEP file number 204-928.
28.
Great. With, I believe, just the one condition about reviewing the alignment to identify the invasive species with me.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor? Carl, do your trick.
Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Sarah, I.
James Pickard,
James Pickett, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew, I.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
and Kyle Maxfield.
Maxfield, aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
8 o'clock. I'm still a little bit early. Got anything else?
Yeah, Amy had a few things, I think.
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, but you know what? I want to call Bruce and see. There's nobody here for that. Oh, wait. There he is. You were hiding his different name. All right, never mind. Yeah, I had, just to let you know, you had your photo taken for the annual report. So I drafted that up basically using the same format. Does anybody want to look through it or approve it or anything before I pass it along?
I think I need to get my wife to change her name.
No, you need to change your name.
Yes, James, you
Made
can
some
do it.
Photoshop.
Jeez.
Not too late. The picture's been taken.
Can you erase your name and put mine on, please?
Anybody feel compelled to read the annual report draft?
I can take a look if you'd like.
Sure, I'll send it over to you. I'm going to try to put in pictures again, and actually there's a fair number of pictures of how people were using the conservation land, so.
Nice.
You can send it to me too. I'll read it.
All right. And the other one was just sort of an update on the bike trail between Cooper and Wellington. I think you might know most of this. Highway put in for a grant with DOT, which I don't think they've heard about. And then the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee also put in a grant, or will be putting in a grant with Mass Trails as sort of a backup grant, because the highway grant, we'd get more money, frankly. And then have to start the permitting really quickly on that, because if it's the highway, they need to spend the money by the end of this fiscal year, so by June 30th. So that'll be fun.
Sure. How are we making out with the Cloverdale and all that engineering or surveying that's been going on?
Yeah, I haven't gotten back. I forgot about that. I need to go back to the abutters about trying to clean up some of that stuff. The survey is done.
Who's responsible for that? The
Well, as far as
steward?
I can tell, it's the property, the abutters who thought that it was their property, but it's town property. The Ademas. And then I haven't gone any further with the management plan piece of it.
Okay.
And then I'm talking with SVT about laying out a trail through town forest, because a piece of it would go through the Hergate property, in which they have the conservation restriction on. Talked to Dave Guthrie this morning, and they continue to kind of be concerned about why they're putting in their part of the trail when there isn't a trail through town forest that I can find. I'll put the trail in town forest. Jim O'Neill had already kind of laid it out, so we're going to get out there with SVT and do some signage that there will be a trail, but then basically say trail closed for construction, because it'll be a while before it gets finished all the way through. And that trail would go all the way through to the Brown property, as well as, if we ever get it, over to Glavy.
Out of curiosity, did anything ever come of the chunk of property that's in the middle of the town forest from the Brown family? Has anything ever been pursued with that, you know?
No, we kind of thought it might. Actually, let me check with town council. It was going back and forth about whether or not they just, give it to the town with the rest of it. I'm not sure that ever actually happened or not. We'll keep the trail off it.
Yeah, I would wondering if they wouldn't use it as a gift against the money they're going to get.
Possibly, although I doubt it has any value.
Guess it would have at one point, because a lot of the townspeople had woodlots in various parcels of land at one time. Just seems strange to have one in the middle of that, that's all.
Yeah, they left themselves with no easement. Oh, and Matt, I went over and talked to the owners at, I think it was 13 Mary Shepherd. And they said those trees were down when they bought the property. And looked at the photographs, and the previous owner had taken a lot of trees down, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they just felled them. And their kids, the current owner's kids, had been playing around there and falling off the trees, and they're worried about it. So they had someone come in and split it all up. And right now they have got, 50 linear feet of woodpile, some up on their lawn and some in the wetlands. I said, okay, you got to get the wood out of the wetlands. I gave them till the summer to do it, because it used to just be trees and now it's just cut up wood. So I wasn't in an immediate rush, and I went through them about what the wetlands are and the whole jurisdiction. And they were very sorry. And they said, well, they'll clean up the rest of the trees that are in there. I said, no, leave the dead trees. We like dead trees.
Was there anything on the conservation land, or was it just in the?
I'm pretty sure it was on conservation land. There weren't any bounds out there. So GPR is doing the survey for Mary Shepherd, and I just sent him an email. I said, if the survey goes for the rest of the stuff goes better than you think it's going to, and you can squeeze in another bound for me, put one at the corner of that property so we know where things are.
Right.
I'm pretty sure
Thanks.
the property just goes like this and then down to the wetland, and I'm sure that is the end of the property. Otherwise, they would have graded it differently.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks to your son.
guess I can move along. 8 o'clock. Public hearing notice of intent, 80-year road, Mass D, 80-year road, R 15-210, Mass D, file number 204-919, construction of a new silo, restoration of railroad siding, and construction of a rail car storage area, 3 new groundwater monitoring wells. Somebody want to speak to this?
I would like to. Good evening. My name's Kyle Burchard from GPR. Just want to make one correction. Anybody who's listening, and the commission included, that the rail siding has been removed from the application. That's no longer a part of this application. We met about 4 weeks ago, and we we're in a position to somewhat take over this project and helping Middlesex Corporation as they were installing additional perimeter erosion controls, meeting with the commission on site, and conducting various testing for pH levels in the basins. And at that time, there were some questions about snow storage about 4 weeks ago. When we last met, the pH testing had been completed and was showing that there's actually the water that's in the on-site basins is somewhat better than the existing stream channel that's running between the site and the MBTA rail line. There was questions Sarah asked about the diesel pump, and it is there, it is operational, and it is on the edge of the snow storage area outside of any buffers or resource areas. There was also question from a few commissioners about the updated O&M plan, and if there was, if it was possible, even though that it had been substantially updated and brought current, if there was a possibility to increase the frequency of inspections, at least initially, until there was some proper baseline established for how much sediment is actually moving through the capture system. So that was also updated in an updated O&M that stated the 5th of January, and went back. Hopefully the commission has had a chance to review that in some detail. There's also, I think Julie asked a question about 303D impaired waterways of this, that she'd seen that was the case, and yes, it is an impaired waterway. It's kind of strange in the 303D list, and in the Merrimack River studies, it says it's an unnamed tributary, and then it puts in quotations Reedy Meadow Brook. So it's unnamed with a name, which is fine. That's okay. And the contamination that was listed specifically was fecal coliform, which is a, probably more produced from farms and so on. There's some upstream of this site in this watershed, more so than from this property where there are no septic systems and there are no, there's no such discharges that would result. In fact, Middlesex TMC Leasing took it upon themselves to have the basins tested for fecal coliform, and there's no contamination there. So, though it's a impaired waterway, the reasons why it are impaired have nothing to do with this site, ostensibly. There had been also a question at the last hearing about equipment washing, and I think we talked a little bit about that. There is a washout trough that's been specifically designed for the trucks to wash out in, and that's the only washing that takes place is into that trough for the barrels when they come back, and there's some residue that's left in these barrels, and then the barrel of the concrete trucks goes through a trough that goes into a chamber, a set of chambers, then that water being recycled back into the concrete. There are certainly questions about the freshwater usage of barge components. There haven't been any to date. Usually those types of uses are in a saltwater environment. However, the additional language that's in the O&M that's stipulating that all such barges, any barges that come to this site, need to be washed at the pull-out location, cleaned off, and their location or points of origin logged, and that record will be kept on site as part of the O&M log record. And barges in general, there was some question about what might come off of the barges, or they're being set at a 10-foot separation to the curbing that's around the south edge of the site, which is allowing for sweeping to get in there and get done. So any debris that dries and falls off would be collected up in the regular sweeping that takes place, which is visually inspected daily, the pavements and so on, and in order to make sure that sweeping is done as appropriate. Sarah mentions the sediment basins needing to be cleaned out. Well, the TMC leasing has gone ahead and cleaned out all of the hard infrastructure that's capturing, that's part of the capture system for any sediments leaving the property. There's 2 concrete flumes. There's a pit that's got a weir outlet to it, and several structures before it gets into the central basin that's nearest the concrete mix plant. And that system, by all accounts, was functioning exactly as it should based on the depths of sediments in the various locations, the deepest amount of sediments in the concrete flume that was immediately adjacent to the plant, somewhere between 4 and 5 inches of sediment was cleared out of that entire flume channel. Then the pit, the basin that's at the end of that flume channel that has a weir outlet, there was a couple of feet of sediment that was in there that was cleaned out. And then there's a second flume channel that the weir goes into that had a inch or 2 of sediment in it. And then further on down from that, it goes into a pipe that goes into a set of structures. And by the time before we enter into the basin, there's almost no accumulated sediment down at that end. So it's evident that the system is performing in order to control sediments and deposition that would get into that basin. The whole system's been cleaned now, so we would ask the commission to allow that to roll forward, to monitor the levels and continue with the inspections and the cleaning as appropriate in that system, rather than requiring a cleaning of the basins right now, which it's not a good time of year. However, in the expanded and updated O&M, you'll notice that there's a pretty detailed, coordinated list of procedures for when the basins need to be cleaned out, that they will be cleaned out. That's been, composed by the facility manager. And it makes a lot of sense with the pre-planning and so on through the whole process to make sure that that's done appropriately. But at the present time, it probably is not needed because the whole system's been cleaned out upstream of the basins. Again, the O&M was updated for the frequencies to increase those frequencies at least for the first year, so that the proper baseline of maintenance is established with that detailed procedure for the basin. There was also some question about the multi-sector general permit and its testing requirements. The multi-sector general permit really is under Sector E, subsector E2, which applies to concrete and gypsum product manufacturers. It does have some stormwater specific effluent limitations from the 2015 guidelines, which is 100 milligrams per liter for TSS and 1 milligram per liter for total iron. We don't have that testing at the moment. Of course, that's part of the multi-sector general permit, which we are in the process of developing. We wanted to kind of hit first things first to make sure that the site was functioning appropriately so that we could move this hearing forward to closing. There is kind of a time sensitive issue to get the cement terminal constructed to hit the season properly. The Littleton Planning Board did vote on Thursday to close their hearing amidst, as seeing that concerns in the community about air and noise and lighting had been addressed satisfactorily by the project. So we'd like to be able to move this forward to closure. And if there are some details in the O&M, which certainly there could be, I would expect some wording that might need some tweaking, but I think substantially the applicant has put forth all the effort. There's not really any looming loose ends that are large issues, and we should be able to close with working through any finer points of language if the commission so sees fit. Thank you very much.
Anybody got any comments?
Yep. Thank you for that, Kyle. Kyle, can we go forth on the O&M? I have some questions and some edits for you.
Sure.
Okay. Question, I'm not sure where it would pertain, and it might be out of our purview, is the monitoring wells. Are we addressing any of that in an O&M or order of conditions, or is that outside?
That's really a direct association with Littleton Water Department.
Okay,
So
good.
Corey has been on point with that, and that's an agreement with them.
Perfect. In the O&M, you make accommodations for sweeping with 3 different ways to do that. Do you want to add anything to make accommodations for dust control and watering? There's been no mention there in the O&M, and I know when one time we were out on site, there was a substantial amount of dust in the air. So if that's something, if you wish to add or not. On page 18, we talk about the marine equipment and the barge, and under the O&M that was submitted to us that we have on record, it only refers to saltwater environment. And I know Julie specifically had added for freshwater. So would like to see that changed. And then I have a couple questions in regards to signage for sensitive areas. We've been asking that. And that can just be standard language to put some of those along that line, and then also for signage for snow storage. And I think those things can be added easily. I'm certainly not hung up on that at all. I do have a question, and I think this pertains to more of the storms that we get in the spring and the summer. In the O&M, you ask for inspections after an intense 1-inch storm, but I think what we've seen in the last decade is that we could have 3 consecutive days that in one of those days, it may cumulatively not be over 1 inch, but I would like to see some language that would at least pique the interest of the person that is doing the inspections to be like, oh, hey, yeah, we just had 3 days or 4 days of consecutive rain that gets us over that mark. We've been looking to add language like that. So, and that's something that you and Amy can design, but that's through all inspections. So that's silt sacks, that's pipes, things like that. And the commission may have some language that might be ready for that. Those are just some of my comments.
Thank you. I think those are all doable.
Well, I have a couple comments, but I'll first piggyback on what Sarah was talking about with the rain duration or intensity. So one of the things that trips the inspection requirement is a certain period of dry, and then you get 1/10 of an inch per hour intensity, and then that would trip the requirement to go out and do one of your rainwater inspections. So I'm sure you'll see that. Were you thinking there was, so that's designed by the EPA because that's when you anticipate after a dry period, you get all this accumulation, and then you get this first washout. And so that's designed to catch that, but you only have to do that like once a quarter, once a month. And so speaking to Sarah's concerns, well, especially, in the first year or so, and I appreciate you added more frequency, until we see how the site is going to behave through these inspections. I think it makes sense to do inspections of rain events, especially when we get, intense rain or prolonged rain.
And if I may, these are good comments, I just want to make sure I understand fully exactly, and I'll look up EPA guidance on this, but it seems what I'm hearing is after long periods of dry, and then there's a flush, maybe it's not an inch, but it's 1/10 of an inch is maybe what you're saying, is that would be an appropriate trigger for an inspection.
That is the trigger for your EPA inspection. That will be, that's in the, I know the permit is super long, but that is in the permit. So it would just go back and look at that because you'll find it for sure.
And is that also, Sarah, what you're saying, or are you saying something slightly different?
She's saying slightly
yeah,
different.
It's really 3. So
Okay,
it's
sure.
the one you have, it's the one that Julie is referencing, but then it's one of those prolonged rains that may go on for a few days so that we really start to look at full saturation if we're having other flushes at that point. I am not privy to language that would be appropriate for that, but I would leave that to your office with Amy's agreement. I think we can move forward on those 3.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too, with the groundwater so high and with the potential for the swales and whatnot to, perhaps back up a little bit. I think it makes sense.
Kyle, if I could just ask a quick question, and I know I keep coming back to the diesel pump because it's of concern for me, is that on the plan now?
It's actually, it kind of makes sense that it's close to the kind of the northernmost monitoring well. I could show you approximately where it is, but it's right near that northernmost monitoring well. That's the farthest one. I'm sorry, north, planned north. It's closest to Air Road.
Right. I just want to make sure that it's on a plan. So if someone were to come on site or something and they're looking for that's actually on a plan.
Okay. Will do.
I had a couple other, I think, relatively quick comments, and then I think it sounded like Kyle had questions too. The sweeping frequency, I noted. I like the daily inspection. That's really can't ask for more than that. But I noticed that there doesn't seem to be a minimum rate for the overall sweeping. And I think I understand what you're trying to say, to not try to say you're going to sweep 7 times per year. And it sounds like it's costly, but typically on other industrial facilities, you do the absolute minimum is a sweep after like the snow season to sweep up any road salt and sand and that type of thing. And so I would want to see at an absolute minimum a sweeping after the winter road season, and then subject to the inspections based on, the operation of the facility and, that's subject to particulates.
Makes sense.
Cool. And then the other question, so it sounds like you are aware of the benchmark sampling, the TSS and iron. So that's
what you meant by benchmark sampling. I'm sorry to interrupt. It didn't appear that way in the permit language. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, no, sure. So the benchmark, it sounds like you'll have to do TSS and iron as a benchmark. And then I think depending on what you come up with, the frequency, you'll see it there's some pretty spelled out instructions in one of the appendices of the permit. But I would like you to share copies of those with Amy, TSS, and, we mentioned rust before, so those are of concern to us. So if we could please, get copies of those. And I think Amy typically gets them. And then the other question is actually regarding particulates. And does the facility, do they have an operating permit with Mass DEP? I'm sure they're not a Title V, but they have an air permit for.
They have an air permit, noise permit from DEP.
Okay. What's their air permit category? Do you know? Does it control particulates?
I'm sure that it does, since, there could be particulates from the site. So
Well, that's why I'm asking.
I'm afraid I don't have a detailed understanding of their air permit.
Okay, because a noise permit wouldn't cover air, like
It is-
particulates and emissions and that type of thing.
It is it's typically lumped together, as I understand, air and noise. That's why I said it that way, but it is an air and noise permit.
Okay. It would be useful to have a little more information about what that permit is. You know, basically, so seeing dust flying around in the air, you know, potentially could be, depending on the frequency, I don't know if they're keeping logs, that could potentially be against their permit conditions because you want to prevent particulates from entering the environment, entering the air for the nearby residences. So it's, you know, there's a couple, obviously, I'm sure you're, you know, aware of this.
And I will find out the answer to that question for you.
Okay, because we want to make sure particulates are controlled.
Yep. I'm certain that they do have the air permit. I will get back to you with that information.
Okay, great, thank you. That's it. For
Kyle, did you have some questions?
I did, not to beat a dead horse with the rain event, but as part of your multi-sector permit, stormwater pollution prevention plan is required for that, correct? You need to SWIP for that?
Yep.
In my experience, past experience, I'm going to imagine that your SWIP is going to require much lower, not much lower, but a lower rainfall event to trigger a site inspection. You know, most are half-inch, and there's ones that can drop to a quarter. I don't think you necessarily need a quarter of an inch, but I wouldn't be surprised if via your SWIP you need to be inspecting the site with a half-inch rainfall event.
And as we get into multi-sector, we can certainly update the O&M to be consistent with that.
Okay, perfect.
Kyle, I might have just missed this in the O&M plan, but the material that is removed from the stormwater structures periodically, where are those stockpiles stored on the site?
Those materials, they're outside the buffer is all I know. I think there is an area that's over outside of the buffer where they're stored, or they're taken off site. I think the preference is to remove them from the site. They don't really qualify, as I understand, to be reused and recycled as aggregate essentially for the concrete mixture.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got any questions, comments?
Amy, any other questions? I know we talked about sediment probes. Has that been addressed?
Well, we did, if I may.
Yep.
We did conduct sediment probes. Again, it was during the ponds being iced over. There was sediments. You know, of course, it's a little bit difficult when it's through the ice to know exactly, and the bottoms being natural earth bottoms. The approximation is maybe 6 to 8 inches in the South Basin and somewhere maybe around a foot. But these are different depths in these basins. They certainly seem to be functioning well. Now, I can't explain that in association with the well functioning of the pretreatment systems, removing those sediments, but I'm not clear on the previous cleanings that have occurred in those systems versus the accumulation over many years that might have occurred. So,
I don't think that was done quite often, Kyle.
Perhaps not.
Based on the numbers, yes.
Perhaps. So we did conduct the probes and had cleaned the system, and we now have a baseline outside of the basins, and we have probe locations to continue to monitor the sediment levels in the basins.
And where do we find that historically going forward? Where will that data live? Is that on a plan somewhere?
The data of the record of the probes.
Of the probes, yeah, like kind of before and after.
Well, that'll live on the site. The facility managers has an office and a file where those will live, I think we can arrange to provide that to the commission. If there, I mean, that's could be part of the O&M record.
Might be
Yeah, it
helpful
seems like
going.
that's a maintenance record.
That's right.
Anybody else have any other questions? I appreciate that you followed through with our concerns from the previous hearing.
It was-
Amy, do you feel like most of those edits can be made in the O&M going forward?
Yeah, so I'd want to figure out what conditions you want to put on this. What I have is signs for the sensitive area, and I'm thinking, what, 2 or 3? I'd kind of put a number on this.
I was thinking more like, yeah, a little more than that, because that's a fairly long stretch.
Every 50 feet?
So I would say like at least a minimum, because it takes that curve back. So I would say at least a minimum of 4 or 5.
Okay. And then whatever signs,
Like
What-
couple snow storage signs.
all right. And then, so that'll be 2 conditions, adding the gas pump. Well, some of these are more, I guess the other condition would be just finalizing the O&M based on review comments, which
Yeah.
includes adding the gas pump, more detail on the minimum sweeping, addressing the rain intensity sampling,
Yep.
um,
Changing the marine to accommodate fresh water.
yep.
Is this a living document to that O&M? Like, yeah, it's a live document, right? And
Yeah.
as you just said, Kyle, there's a chance that as you're going through your general permit that,
That's true, and we would certainly be, we'd update the commission with whatever updates are appropriate to match up with the multi-sector general permit.
Yeah, so I agree, Kyle. I don't think this is going to be a final go round, but I'd like to try and bring it up to speed to where we are as of this discussion. So I feel as though we can close it with the understanding of our discussion and comments from tonight.
Yeah, and just verification too of the proper air permit, so
Yeah.
that we know the particulates and the dust are being appropriately managed.
Exactly.
Is that's just part of the O&M piece, right?
That's informational, I think,
Yeah.
and I'll.
Yeah, it's not really condition.
No, it's just
Not
to verify that the facility is operating in a manner consistent with the air regulations, because if it's not, then the particulates and the dust impact our stormwater and our resource areas. So it's proof that the site is properly controlled.
Is there a commissioner that wants to make a motion if we have been asked to close this?
Somebody want to speak up?
I just need the DEP file number. I don't have that in front of me.
928.
Yeah, 2049, isn't it 919?
Yeah, I would say we did 928,
It's
the last
920.
one.
Yeah,
919.
204919.
No, oh, that's wrong.
Okay.
919 that's closed. I forget which one that was, but that's wrong. That's a typo.
I'm not the only one with a file number problem.
Kyle, what's your DEP number?
Good, I apologize, I was looking up the air permit. Where are we? I'd have to look back, please pardon my delay here. So,
We probably don't need it to close. We know we have it.
Yeah, okay.
so,
All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions subject to the discussion we had this evening for 80 Air Road.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard,
I think I have to vote present.
Andrew Samarco,
It's
Marco, I.
Julie Rupp,
aye or nay or recuse yourself.
is that Jim?
Yeah, Jim, your vote has to either be aye or nay or recuse yourself.
Recuse myself.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Aye.
Okay, that's it. One abstention.
Passes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amy, you said Taylor Street was on hold?
Correct. He is, Matt Myro is talking to a wall guy about a better design in there where they wouldn't have to get into the wetlands to do the construction. So he's got to pull together those plans.
Okay.
Has to be continued to the January 25th meeting.
The 8:30 meeting continued. Public hearing notice of intent, 83 Mill Road, U3826O, Mass DEP file number 204-927, replace failed septic system.
Well,
Somebody want to speak to that?
Ted's not here, right? I don't see him. So I'm going to send him an email right now because he forgot us last time too. So maybe we can pick him up at the end. Oh, but now we're stuck.
Which means we have a large gap of 15 minutes before.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to discuss? We're not going to move forward with this.
I don't know if he was kidding, but he almost sounded like last time he thought that we would approve it without him. So hang on a second.
Can anybody tell me where 83 Mill Road is?
By the apartments all the way down at the end by 495, just 2 houses down from 67. That was that knockdown project right on the banks. So it's basically right on the bank of Mill Pond.
Right on the bank, and I think it's right next to the 495.
That's the road that goes in before by the Catholic Church you're talking about?
Yep. Yeah, by St. Anne's.
That's the little red house that got demolished and rebuilt.
Right. That was 67. And then it's
Yeah, I can remember the
2
number.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as Coin Ted, that reminded me, what were they doing? They had to redo the design for the Board of Health, so he asked for continuance.
So should that be put on for next meeting? Or
Yes. Continued to the 25th also.
Can you put them last?
Last time was his fault, this time's my fault.
Okay.
Although he was already on the agenda when he's told me that, but.
So are the people from Scott Road coming in?
They are here.
Okay.
Eh,
We're still
Amy,
10
has it
minutes
been-
off.
Good, Sarah.
What'd you say?
Has there been any more discussion with the Corps of Engineers on, in the town on Mill Pond?
Nothing I've heard of recently. Which kind of reminds me, the water department is going to be coming in for an extension for 204-686, which is the Cobb's Wells stuff, because they're basically, let's see, I guess Concord is giving them a hard time, so DEP is giving them a hard time, so they're delayed. They did the pump test, I think it was in 2018, and they've been on hold because of these delays. So they're officially going to be asking for a 3-year extension. Corey already sent me the letter, but it was just today, so I'll put it on the agenda for next time. But if he comes in for that, you can also ask about what's going on with Mill Pond. I haven't heard anything recently.
Okay, thanks. It sounded like it was gaining momentum a year ago.
Yeah. That was momentum.
Is that gonna be the cleaning of both sides of Howard Ave?
Yes. One other thing on the department goals, if anybody wants to go on to the Conscom website and look at the Littleton Natural Resources tab, that's got all sorts of stuff in there, and that's also where I would put the invasive species. So, there's a little tiny thing in there on invasive species. I could increase that. If there's anything else you think should be in there, just let me know and we can kind of figure it out. A lot of that was cobbled together pretty quickly back in March or April for the COVID stuff, just to get people information about how to get out and about.
Where was that, Amy? I missed the first part.
It's on the Conscom webpage.
Oh, okay.
On the left side, it's Littleton Natural Resources. It's a tab.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Hey, Amy, I know it's hard to track, but like Fish and Wildlife lands and state park lands have been getting crazy use by visitation. Is it the same with Littleton Conservation?
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot. I think it's kept up. It was really busy this spring, early summer, when people were just going a little crazy, and there were parking issues and dog issues, and the trails have taken a hit. There's been a lot of bikers out there, and there's been some damage from heavy bike use in a couple areas. Some of the bikers have been creating trails over at Oak Hill, which needs to be addressed somehow. But yeah, there's been a lot of use.
I think that with the tree hunt, they said they had 50 or 59 teams completed all of the trees. So there was a lot of people out and about.
Can't hear you, Kyle. Or just like every third word.
I think you said a lot of people were out there at the tree hunt, like 59 teams completed
Oh yeah.
it.
Oh, and that kind of reminded me, I don't know if the Conscom would be interested in doing a tree next year.
Not a bad idea.
I think we should. That'd be great.
Yeah, I can't remember if they are, I don't know, oversubscribed, if you will, or if they need extra people to come in and do trees. But the folks who are doing the trees are doing more and more stuff with the tree. And hopefully they've taken them all down.
They've been pretty good about that in the past as well. So I haven't seen anything left up yet.
I did notice a lot of tinsel this year, which
That's not good.
isn't great. It's like,
I saw that in one of the photos, like,
yeah, there are a few.
And there was one that was a bunch of, that was like baseball cards or something. I don't know where it was.
I think it was the veterans one had the cards with
Oh, okay, that's probably what it was.
yeah. The like I think mini versions of the banners that were up.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I went down to Cloverdale, I don't know, in the fall, and they had one of the book. What do they call where they set up the book?
Dory Walk.
What's it called?
Dory Walk, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty. I was pretty impressed. I gotta tell
Those,
you.
as far as I know, were well attended. They had one earlier that was also at Hartwell. They were talking about maybe even putting in almost permanent signposts, so they can do it pretty easily.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done.
Yeah.
It'd be neat if they could do that in the winter too, get the kids out.
And Cloverdale's getting tremendous. I mean, there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, and it's a nice short walk, and I think the boardwalk is just a huge amenity.
I think that's what people like about it, is that it's a loop. And any time you can make a loop as opposed to going back out the same way you came in, is always, people love those.
Yeah, and it's kind of a short-ish loop. It clearly needs more boardwalk. It gets pretty soggy, especially right at the end on the far side of the main boardwalk. That really needs extension. They started throwing hay down. It's like, no. You can't start filling with that stuff. So it's getting trampled because it's so much use.
Yeah.
Did somebody keep track of that type of stuff? Because you noticed, I think it was, I forget, had basically like a stream crossing where somebody had actually put some sort of piping in the ground, but the pipe was just kind of laying in the stream, and then there was large stones to kind of step across. So you had to walk through the water regardless to get across. I don't know if it was just a snow melt thing or if it's always like that.
Where was this?
Pretty sure it was Yap. If you had left towards Shaker Lane and down once you get down.
Yeah, up at the north end.
Yes.
We, Rick, Jim, and I, and my husband scavenged about 100 linear feet of pipe from the Delineation project down in Stone Bolton, and that's all stockpiled up at the cemetery right now. And so I mentioned on Littleton Trails, and where would people like to see it be used? Absolutely no guarantee you're going to get what you want. And that north end of Yap was definitely one of the ones. Yap, Hartwell. That's another thing potential thing on my project list. I had sort of started an inventory of all the open spaces and whether or not they have kiosks or signs or gates or all that sort of stuff. So I might try to get the land stewards to fill that out for their properties. And you might be getting the land steward reports maybe in the next 2 to 4 weeks too.
Do you know when they're going out to Mary Shepherd to try and put a trail in there?
Well, I don't. When I was out there at 13 Mary Shepherd, I looked out and there was an orange stake, not where I thought an orange stake, property line stake should be. So I sent them an email this morning and said, is that you guys? So I'm not sure when they're going out.
Okay.
Hopefully before we get snow of some sort.
Okay.
But I think it's supposed to be, what, 50 degrees on Saturday?
Didn't see any snow in the 10-day forecast.
Yeah.
Jim, I think we can go ahead now with the 8:45.
Continued public hearing notice of intent, 9 Scott Road, and also 911 Scott Road. And that's U49270, Mass DEP file number 204-926, and U49280, Mass DEP file number 204924. Paving driveway. Somebody want to speak to that? I believe there was a site inspection done out there at some point. I think I heard something about that.
Yes, Amy, Julie, and I went out on site.
Is there anybody that wants to speak to it?
So if there's a representative, you may have to unmute yourself.
Who's doing this?
I assume Sarah.
Well, I believe the owners at 911 were kind of waiting for the commission to let them know their thoughts about what may or may not need to be done out there and what they can and can't do and what sort of studies they might need. Do you want me to run through the photos and then?
Yeah, sure. I think we basically left it in their hands that it was definitely going to need a filing and an engineer just because of the sensitive nature. But I think for the commissioners, it would be great for them to see the photos.
So this is looking back to Scott Road, but this is on 9 Scott at the entrance. You can see they've done some recent gravel and the gravel over the edge. I'm sorry, these are kind of out of order, and the gravel going down the hill a bit. And then
Amy, can I jump in just 2 seconds? The
Yeah.
one, some of the 9 Scott ones, they're like across the private road from 9 Scott. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
They're like across Scott Road, not like part of their driveway.
that is the driveway. Scott Road is way back.
Okay. Okay, so I guess they're part of the driveway that extends straight from Scott Road.
So that is driveway, that is not Scott Road.
Okay, all right, that's helpful.
Yeah.
That's what I was referring to. Thanks.
And then at 9 Scott, they also have this separate drive that goes down around the house down to the lakefront. The bottom portion of it is paved in kind of bad shape, and the upper portion of it is compact dirt. I thought I had a picture in here. Maybe I don't. And then this slope right here is this slope, which is a little bit unstable. It's not well vegetated and probably needs attention. So the main issues we discussed out there, and Sarah and Julie, jump in, is especially concerns about something like this, which is very steep, with runoff going down right into the lake, as well as runoff coming down this new pavement towards 11 Scott, and how that would may or not go over the shoulder and affect things. And then over at 11 Scott, this is from 9 Scott looking down the continuance of the dirt road. So they would want to pave this down to the parking area, fairly large area of this whole parking area. And then over to the side here of the house, they would want to pave this where they have sort of boat storage in there. And that's looking obviously down towards the lake, back up towards the parking area. And you can see that it's an interesting slope in here. And so there's concern about engineering in this area in particular, as well as runoff from it. So that's kind of the summary.
I think one thing too is that the photos kind of don't do the steepness justice.
No.
I mean, there's so we looked around on site. Amy did a pretty good summary as far as the steepness of the driveway. Also at number 11, the place where the boat and the pirate ship camper are parked. It's basically a direct shot over a retaining wall and then like down towards the lake as well. And so we felt as though, some engineering calculations for stormwater would really be necessary, to make sure that we don't just have a waterfall heading down towards the lake. And actually this picture we're showing now too, one of the plans was to not pave all the way to the edge, to have a gravel buffer. And so there was some concern about preferential erosion at the edges of the pavement. And so these are just, some examples of reasons why we feel as though an engineer really is necessary for this project.
Right, and truly that for the steep grade, but also in terms of vegetation and really to control the erosion as well. And then when we get on to 11, the instability of the bank that we would then be adding more pavement on top of as well. So I think
Are some of these new homes that have been built recently?
no. I mean, no. But
Ours has been there since we got here.
Yeah, I think over time, vegetation changes, things get added. So we just have to look at that steep grade.
Does that need to be vegetated or have wood chips or something put on it to stabilize it?
I would think so. It would certainly help. We talked a little bit about the erosion control mix or something that has a tackifier in it for sure. Adding vegetation would certainly help.
Is it loam or gravel or what's there?
Dirt and gravel. So, if any of the representatives for Scott Drive would like to say hello, introduce themselves to the commissioners, tell us what your thoughts are.
Do you want to say something?
Okay, well, this is Max and Cindy Legault at 11 Scott Road. Ours seems to be less of a concern. Ours just, the only guys you were concerned about was that driveway going on the side of our house, which whether we paved or not, the issue would still be there. But that's us. Don't know what else I could add.
I think one thing that I think you have a little bit of a unique situation that as you drive in to the right, you've got a nice way that you could kind of tip some of the water that would be coming from your driveway there. So I think
Definitely agree there.
The better option of resources there as well.
Right, we definitely we're not right on the edge of anything, so yeah.
Yeah, we're just basically in a constant mud season here. When we had that recent snowstorm, I was shoveling water and ice off the driveway because otherwise it's a total sheet of ice. It's dangerous.
It's a lot of fun.
I would assume where the mud was, you'd end up scraping it out and put some good base underneath it. So before you could do the blacktop.
Yeah, they're supposed to resurface.
We saw you.
And so that was my understanding is they were going to resurface and do that. I mean, we have many times put gravel or crushed stone or, it's like anything we could try to make it better. Just every time it gets plowed, everything just plows up and ends up on our lawn.
Right.
Well, hold on.
Think about when you add the pavement and we're going from pervious to impervious, that where's that water going to go? And we just have to make sure that it's not going to run down.
We'll be able to hear you now.
The lake.
Yeah. Okay. And hold on. Our neighbor is actually on the phone because they got disconnected.
They are not able to speak, but they're able to hear you. Chris, you can talk now.
So there is a dial-in number that you can get on the conservation website as well. So you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, they're having trouble. Can you hear what they're saying?
We can't hear you on the live stream, but we can hear you on my phone. You can do a dial-in if you have to.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anybody have the dial-in number handy?
It's on the conservation website on littletonma.org.
Amy, you could probably just hit the back button.
I'm on an iPad right now. So
This came from our website.
Littleton, Mass.
So for 11 Scott, you're saying you would still want to see some sort of engineering?
Yes.
So, of where the drainage is.
It's in the resource area, it would have to be.
Oh boy, I tried to put my conservation Littleton.
So I can read.
Go to the calendar.
Yep, I can read a telephone number off the agenda if anyone's.
Oh, please, thank you.
So dial by location. So the closest one. So area code. So you dial 1-929-205-6099, and then it gives you a meeting ID number. And then a passcode. I think all you need is the passcode, which is 254462. It's right on the agenda for the hearing tonight.
Okay.
So if they got that, but while you're on, why don't we carry on the conversation for 11 Scott Road?
All right. Now Cindy's going to text that over to them now.
Okay. So the commissioners are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, we understand about the flow study, and I understand that you want us to ideally would be heading the flow towards that. Well, everything around us is wooded into an area that is safe without erosion problems. We're surrounded by plant life, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, well, do you guys know an engineer and do you have some idea of how much it costs? And what they're like. I haven't used an engineer before. I have not a clue who to use. Or how we can try to budget in the cost for all this.
Yeah, that's a super subjective question. We certainly can't recommend. There are a list of engineers, and I think it's really who you align with to have them come out and look and give you an estimate. I think they'll all be on the same page, knowing that they have to look at where the resource area is and what you're looking to do. You can give them the best case scenario. What you want to do is everything, and then you can always pull back. It's harder when you do plans to add on things, but they would have to come out and survey because they have to get your elevations as well. So that way they can work with the topography.
Okay, and so let's say they come up with a plan, then what? As far as, you know, if they say, oh, you have to like fix like a wall or something.
Right. So what you'll do is, and Amy can show you that you would file what's called a notice of intent. And so that means that you would basically fill out a form that states what you're seeking to do to the property. They notify the abutters, and so that it's an open hearing just like this, if you've had a chance to listen to some of the other ones as well. And Amy can help you through that process, but that's something that historically the engineer would help you with as well.
Oh, okay, meaning like finding a contractor to actually do the work?
You have to get approval first. So the first step is to file what your wishes are, come through conservation, get your approval, and then you would then take it to the next step.
Okay, and the engineer is the very first step in that?
You're looking for a civil engineer.
Yeah.
Civil
Would
engineer,
do the
okay.
plans, and then the contractor is a separate.
Okay.
You may have some of this information on a plot plan for the house as it is. Or on your deed, you may have a plot plan already drawn up. That
Yeah, I think we have a plot plan.
Civil engineer, so you wouldn't have to.
Anything that shows your bounds, like if you've had to redo your septic system, they would have had a plan of your property.
Yeah, I mean,
I know your cement block on your property line may not be what they're looking for when we saw that one.
Okay, all right.
Yep. They'd want to find probably a stake that's in the ground somewhere.
Yeah, our neighbors can't connect.
Yeah, unfortunately, they still cannot connect.
You want to say to them? Question mark.
Yep. So they're welcome. We meet again in 2 weeks. We're happy to put them back on again. But all the instructions are right on the town website.
Okay. All right. They're telling us to meet in 2 weeks.
If you wish.
Yeah, no, we can.
So I think that would pertain to your neighbors so that we can go through, because each is very site specific. I think you're very unique. They're very unique. So
yeah.
A call just came in. But I don't hear them saying anything.
Oh, I hear you now. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yay!
Oh, boy, that was that. I don't know what's going on.
well, yep.
I guess the question we have,
I'm sorry, can you just identify yourself?
this is Brenda 9 Scott Road.
Okay.
So if we choose to scale down the project and just pave our driveway area, which is not the right of way, it's just the section next to the house, and resurface just the pavement that's already been done, would that be a problem?
If you're outside of the 100-foot buffer zone and not within 200 feet of the stream or the river, then you wouldn't have to do a filing. But without an engineer, to specifically know how far away you are, we're not able to tell you that here this evening. That's what an engineer would tell you.
So you want an engineer, even if we wanted to just pave that small section next to the driveway, next to the garage?
If you're
That's that flat surface right next to the driveway.
right,
I mean, next to the garage.
That's all in the buffer zone.
Yep. If you're doing anything in the buffer zone, it would require a notice of intent.
Okay. So didn't we do a notice of intent already?
Yes,
I
that is,
guess what I'm asking is, we filed for all this already, but if we just want to scale it back so we don't have to get into a lot of difficulty, and if we just made it that small area from the garage up to the right of way, would that be a problem to do? And not do the right of way?
you have a notice of intent in front of the Conservation Commission, and if you want to adjust what you're asking for, you can do that under the same notice of intent. But I believe the commissioners
Right.
want to see what's the increased impervious and the change in drainage is going to do.
Right.
Okay.
It's gonna have to be on a plan.
Okay, so if we just cancel this whole thing out, do we need to just notify you that we're not going to move forward with the, and just cancel our notice of intent?
Yes, you could just withdraw.
Okay, so we'll have to talk with our next door neighbors then and make a decision on what we're going to do.
Amy, are these two separate notice of intents?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, okay.
So I guess that's it. Do you have any questions, Chris? Okay, I guess that's it.
Okay, sorry it was difficult to log on.
No, that's okay. Just a little stressful.
Right, I know. Okay, we're always happy to answer any questions. So even if you want to come back in, we can continue to keep this open and answer questions through the process as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank
Yep.
you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
And Jim, if I may, I'm a little nervous that Civil Solutions is in here. Is that Kirk? I'm not sure who's here. And if there's something that needs to go on should have been on the agenda.
We're at 9 o'clock, whatever it is.
That's three Dahlia.
It's me, Kevin Ritchie. I'm here from Civil Solutions for 3 Dahlia.
Okay,
Welcome.
Thank you.
I need to read the notice of intent. 3 Dahlia, U174050, Mass DEP file number 204-925, raising existing dwelling and replacing with a new dwelling and septic system.
So this is a continuation of a previous hearing. Previously, for 3 Dahlia, they had proposed knocking down the existing house, the garage, the shed, and relocating the driveway. Since the last hearing, they've reconsidered. They're going to leave everything as is. They're going to leave the garage, the existing house, the driveway, so there'll be no work to any of the existing structures. It does have a failed septic system, so we are proposing to replace the failed septic system. So again, this project has gone from a new dwelling and a septic system to just replacing the existing failed septic system. So we've got the wetland across Dahlia Drive. It's created by the drain that runs from the street behind it, runs down under Dahlia and drops in here. We've got the 100-foot buffer here. The septic tanks and pump chamber are all outside the 100-foot. Large majority of the leaching area is outside the 100-foot. We're about 98 feet from the wetland to the corner of the leaching area, just this little corner here. And then obviously in this neighborhood, the system is elevated. So there is some fill associated with the breakout of the system. And so we've got some fill here in the buffer zone. And at its closest point, we're 85 feet from the wetlands. So this is just an upgrade for the existing house. Again, there'll be no change to the house. The plan has been before the Board of Health and is approved by the Board of Health.
Anybody got any questions?
Nope.
Yep. I mean, it's seems pretty straightforward. You're replacing the system in the exact location.
Yeah, so the
that it is
existing,
now. It looks like
Yeah.
you don't have any space.
no, they would be having to cross the drain to go to this side. Obviously, there's not quite enough room here in the back.
Yep.
And yeah, the existing system, the existing tank is here, and the existing leach field is basically in the same spot.
Okay. And your erosion control, it kind of stops. I don't know
Yeah, I
if
think
it's actually
that's probably, yeah, just so they can have some access to get the trucks in and out here.
Okay. Do you know how shallow groundwater is there?
I believe in one of the holes, it was at 2.5 feet in this hole. And I believe this one was at 42 inches, 3.5 feet.
Okay. So is it
So it's roughly 2.5. The system's coming up about 2.5 feet over this in this area here.
okay, so you're doing a hill, you're not doing any of the newer technology.
But we are using the Presby,
Oh, okay.
which is an alternative.
Yep.
But we're not proposing. We don't need any retaining walls or anything like that.
Okay, so it'll just be a hill. And
Yes.
remind me, there's a hill now, right?
This one here, on this lot here,
Yeah.
is
Wow, since I've been there.
yeah, no, it's not a drastic bump.
Okay.
It's not like it's going to be.
Okay, I thought there was a bump there.
This one here next door, I think front on Goldsmith, it's got a big concrete retaining wall holding it back.
Yeah. And so I guess drainage then from the new bump, have you looked at that? Is that going to create any significant drainage?
It shouldn't change anything. It's all going to be grassed again, so we're not changing any of the surface.
So it should infiltrate enough. And then the area to the south of it is that I see bushes. So that
So there's it's a little small
vegetated.
so there's a couple of little trees here. Those will remain.
Okay. And so it'll stay vegetated then between the bump and the road,
Yes.
for example. Okay.
When do you propose to do this?
Good question. I don't know. I would guess they're probably gonna. Well, no, I don't know for certain.
No, I was just wondering how they're gonna stabilize the slopes on it if it's this time.
Yeah, no. I mean, they've got their permit there, but I don't know how big a hurry they're in. It's obviously it's not a great time of year to do them, but some people do anyway. My gut feeling would be they'd probably wait until the spring. But again, I'm not certain.
That's about the only place it can go anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. It couldn't cross the drain. It's got a garage here. Just given the height of it, it wouldn't meet the offsets from the house and the property line. So yeah, this is really the only, it's a good spot, but it's the only spot as well.
And you had Board of Health approval?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a commissioner that wants to make a motion?
Did you say that was a failed septic system?
It would have failed a Title V inspection.
Okay.
It's not breaking out on the ground surface or anything.
Okay, thanks.
The existing one's probably in the groundwater.
All right.
Somebody wanna make a motion?
Let's see. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for 3 Dahlia Drive, DEP file number 204-925.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
This is Carl Milberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard,
James Pickett, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Maxfield, aye.
It's unanimous.
Carried. Okay. Well, not quite to 9:15. Enforcement order at 15 Douglas Road. R 08-1322, Mass DEP file number 204-870.
Amy and I can speak to that. I think we were out there early this morning, and Dave is on as well. Amy, do you have photos?
I think we got the wrong set of photos right now.
Right. So over a week ago, we issued a enforcement order on 15 Douglas for, this was after some of the rains. You'll see the sliding. They came out and moved everything back, addressed the erosion control, added hay bales, silt fencing. It seems stable. We were out there today.
Is this Durkee?
Correct. Up as you go all the way up the hill, take a right.
Yeah, I know this.
Yep. And then we also looked at set number 3, where the basin is as well. So we came, it was a good walk this morning. We came away with 2 target areas just to keep their eyes on if we were to have any of the frost leave the ground and then have some substantial rains. They are starting to be vegetated on 15 and 3. So I think we just have to keep an eye on it. But for the most part, the breakout has been addressed. Amy, thoughts?
No, that was it. And actually, partially what happened is that I went out to do an inspection in the morning, and there'd been a second breach. There'd been one back in early December. And by the time Sarah and I got back there later in the day, they had raked all this out and done more stabilization in here, and they've done a little bit more work since then. So I don't have a picture of that, so you get the worst case look at it right now.
But as of this morning, everything has been addressed, so I would make a motion to release the enforcement order. Dave did meet with us this morning, and we're just keeping an eye on a few spots.
Do we have to first verify the enforcement order before we can release it?
Yeah, I think you need to vote to ratify it since only a couple people signed it, and then you can vote to release it.
Okay.
I think you probably do that as one motion, so you don't have to do the vote twice.
Okay. So I would move that we ratify the enforcement order and then release the enforcement order on 15 Douglas Road, which is Mass DEP 204-870.
Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Kyle Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard,
James Pickett, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Maxfield, aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
Dave, while you're here, do we want to take just a brief second to talk about the trail? And I think we're on good footing for our discussion this morning.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Amy, do you want to talk about that, of how kind of what our discussion was of starting to link those 2 trails and maybe adding a little signage and looking at that?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, what we talked about is the land stewards have sketched out, well, I think it might have been in 2018, a trail from your basically 6 Douglas back through the town forest to Harwood Avenue. So what we were talking about is getting at least the part that's near 6 Douglas, from our side of things, at least flagged out and starting to get that built, then we could put a sign on the town property side of thing saying a trail, but we also have probably a trail under construction sign on there as well, so it's clear until it's actually goes somewhere, that they're not finalized. And then you were talking about maybe putting a trail sign at Douglas Road so that everyone knows a trail is coming. And then probably, I'm assuming next spring or summer, we talk about how to build that section of trail in your easement.
Yeah, and like I said, we went. I think you may have been part of it, Amy. Certainly, we were working with Maren when we were finalizing the section of that. The easement is in place. Chris is ready with the crews to do sort of whatever. But like we discussed this morning, what do you want for surface, and how do we stabilize that piece of the trail that enters into the roadway, whether it be asphalt or larger stone or stone dust, but ideally, that project will wrap up this spring. So if we could do it while we have the crews there, we're prepared. But we would just like some unified direction in conjunction, probably with the commission as well as planning, and to see what everybody is interested in, and then we'll pull the trigger and get it done.
So I think that's great. I think based on our conversation this morning, to just have Amy talk to Mara and try and really keep this ball rolling. Dave, and I think we all think that we really want to make it known that that trail is coming, because the longer we wait, I think people are going to think, oh, they forgot about it, we're not going to put that trail in. So we'd like to at least start to get some signage and really get that in.
So I think we can, if I may, I'm happy to coordinate with Amy and Maren if there's, each town is specific to what they like their trail signs to look like. Maybe if your trail committee has a sample, we can have one made for the entrance out at the roadway as well as back at the stone wall. If you prefer, we're happy to take that task on. We just would like to have some direction on what you're looking for, and then we'll crank that out and get those installed.
Excellent. Any of the commissioners have any questions?
I was wondering if the whole housing project was going to be notified that there is a trail that can go out through there. I was just wondering if that's something that should be marked out, or signage or something someplace.
Well, it is very close to a house, so I don't know that we have to go above board to notify. I think what we want to do is to start to have signage for what we would consider a trailhead, and have it go looping up to the next property. It is a steep grade, so it's going to be interesting what type of footing and base is used for that. So it's nice now that there's not a snow cover to be able to look at that.
And honestly, I think that's where we got hung up with Maren and what to do exactly as you speak, Sarah, to that entryway. So if there's direction that could sort of be provided there, and maybe bring your trail committee in to see if they have some thoughts. But that was the hinge point as why we didn't just bang it out when we were there the first time. And like I said, our goal is to kind of wrap up the spring, and if we could do it while we were there, it's obviously easier for us. So we appreciate whatever. And I appreciate you bringing it up and getting the ball rolling again. And if Amy and Maren, I'll make myself available to you two to see what the thought process is, and then move forward.
Cool. All right. Thanks for your time, Dave.
All right. Thank you, guys.
You know, the row of cedars down there, are those on the 6 Douglas Way property with the easement, or is that the other guys?
No, it's on the other side. Yeah, it's on the other side.
Okay.
So they're buffering the house on the left side. So the easement will start from that vegetation line and head towards the home on the right-hand side.
Okay, yeah.
That's my last recollection of it. Amy, I confirm that, but I believe that's how it was, because Chris and I looked at this with Maren in the spring, and again, we got hung up on how to get off the road comfortably.
Yeah, because as those things grow, they're going to start encroaching basically on the bike, the trail. So at some point, it would be nice. Actually, you have stakes out there, don't you, that show the easement, I think. Yeah. I think it's already marked.
Yeah. If not, we can redefine those, but Yeah, we'll get it so that it's,
Yeah.
those are arborvitaes, I think will probably serve two purposes. One, to grow upright, two, to feed the deer pretty soon. So they'll probably disappear.
All right. Cool.
All right, guys, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have we got anything more, Amy, that we need to talk about?
Well, do you want Amber to take another picture now that you're James Pickard and not Eleanor anymore?
Yeah.
I already did.
He goes away. All right.
I already did. After he changed it.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. All right.
Okay. If there's no more business, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn at, I guess it's 9:22.
So moved.
All those in favor? Carl?
No, I think we need a second.
Second.
Kyle Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward,
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard,
James Pickard, aye.
Andrew Samarco,
Andrew Samarco, aye.
Julie Rupp,
Julie Rupp, aye.
Brian Crowley,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Maxfield.
Unanimous.
Everyone be well.
Good night.
Thanks,
Take care,
Sarah.
everybody.
Bye.